Welcome to 4-H for You, a podcast from the Hoosier Ag Today presents your Purdue Extension podcast network. It's the podcast that puts you at the heart of Indiana 4-H, and I'm Greg Allen. Today we're diving into one of the most impactful parts of the 4-H experience, judging. It's more than just ribbons and results. 4-H judging helps young people build confidence, strengthen communication skills, and deepen their knowledge in the projects they care most about. We'll also talk about how you can see it all firsthand at your local county fairs, where months of hard work come to life, and how you can play a role in supporting the next generation. Whether you're a longtime supporter or just curious about 4-H, this episode is for you. We're excited to talk to Megan Skiba, 4-H Club Support and Recognition Specialist. Megan, thank you so much for joining us today.
I'm happy to be.
Okay, so let's get right into it. So for someone who may be unfamiliar, what exactly is 4-H judging and how does it work at the county fair level?
Yes. So 4-H judging is a big part of what 4-H is. Obviously, 4-H offers a lot of different opportunities and learning, but 4-H projects are kind of like the bread and butter of it, I would say. It's been around a very long time. So to break it down from the beginning, 4-H offers a bunch of different projects where when youth sign up to join 4-H, they are able to join as many projects they would like in their county. So some people like to just join one or two projects so they can really focus on these two projects, whereas you have other people that will literally try to take all of the different projects so they can have experience in each of the different projects. And so from that, the projects are kind of where you begin the process. So we have different guidelines for each of the projects. So 4-H members, are kind of given the guidelines of what they can do, what they can't do, kind of giving them different guidelines to stay in their age knowledge, age level knowledge. So we're not pushing them too far. And then they take these guidelines and they create their own 4-H projects from this. And once those projects are complete, every county has a 4-H fair, that happens sometime in the summertime. Obviously, they vary, from May to September, really. But each of the fairs will take in these projects, and then we'll have an opportunity to judge them during their. Some counties, once again, it kind of differs between counties, but there will be a day or a week of judging. So these projects will all come to the county fairs.
Megan, I am certain that the list of projects is exhaustive. Can you just go through a bit of, I'm sure you can't probably list every, project item that you can find to be a part of, but maybe you can go through a couple of them for us?
Yes, I want to do. I should also back up and say I help oversee all of the static projects. So the animals and the livestock, we obviously offer as projects, but I just personally do not oversee them. And so the different static projects that we offer, I think we have about 40 different projects. And so they range in skill and, different topics. So some of the examples, we offer a foods project. So, for example, these 4-Hers will bring in a baked food project. So, you will see muffins, cakes, cookies, casseroles, literally anything you can dream of, it will be their judging day. And we also offer some different opportunities in STEM and computers where 4-Hers can test their knowledge in coding and different things within the computer and virtual world. We also offer woodworking, where 4-Hers create items from scratch, whether or not, it's a bookshelf, a table, the world is their oyster in that sense. So you end up with a variety of projects in that. We also offer sewing, where 4-Hers can create different clothing items or quilts. And so you see a variety of pajamas, dresses, pants, quilts, once again, anything and everything. And another popular project would probably be arts and crafts, where this one is also open. As you can tell, all of these projects are pretty open to interpretation, and you can have anything walk in that door. But arts and crafts, you can have anything from paintings and drawings to Lego displays to, I'm trying to think of all the different, ceramics. You can really see all of the different opportunities within arts and crafts. So that's just a few of the projects they can bring in. I will also give a shout out. We do have some more in-person judging. So we do offer projects like communication, where 4-Hers will prepare a speech and give that in person at the fair. So we do have, more of those like items that you create and bring, but also opportunities where they are actively involved in the judging, if that makes sense.
So, would you say that judging could be a project?
I mean, we could evolve to that level.
Because I'm certain that there are young people that can get involved in that side of the project, in the judging part of it. How does that work, and how does that build confidence and communication skills?
Yes. So the judging process, I would say there's kind of two different parts. So you have the 4-H members in the judging process, that bring their projects to the fair and they're being judged. And so it is a great opportunity. So some counties, I should say, some counties have closed judging where projects are dropped off and then judging happens in a closed space without the 4-Hers present. And judges come in, judge those projects, leave notes for those 4-H members. But a lot of counties in Indiana, we focus on an open judging format, where the 4-H members are invited to attend these judging sessions and, take up their projects and talk to the judge. And I would say that is such an incredible opportunity for the 4-H members because it builds those hands-on communication skills where, I remember I was a 4-Her back in the day when I was a kid, and it just gives you so many skills to be able to walk up to an adult, and talk about what project you created, how you created it, and for them to ask you follow-up questions about it and being able to answer those. It just sets those 4-H members up for success for the rest of their lives, because communication is not, that is a needed skill in the world. And so I would say within that communication and leadership, that is such an amazing process for those 4-Hers to really get that experience. And then on the flip side, we do have judges come in to judge these projects. And so judges have to be outside of the 4-H program, so they cannot be currently in the 4-H program. But we do have a lot of people that come back, right after graduation, right, when they exit the program. And they get to come back and kind of give back to the program, I guess. But once again, building those skills of, talking to the youth and, setting them up for success in the future. So that is also a wonderful experience that 4-Hers can have, when they leave the program, where they can come back and continue developing those skills.
Now, I'm sure it varies from project to project platform, but is there commonality things or things that judges are looking for across the board, whatever the project might be?
Yes. So each project, like I said, each project has different guidelines and specifications to kind of keep 4-Hers on track. And from that, we create different scorecards for these guidelines so that the judges can, all judge this, when they're judging each of the projects, they're holding them to the same expectations, an even level. And so those scorecards are used in judging. A lot of the scorecards are pretty similar, where they're making sure that the guidelines are met and that, the quality is good. And I would say, so those scorecards are used during judging, and obviously conversation within the judging, can kind of stray from those scorecards, but that's kind of like a good base element, if that makes sense. And we do
Sure.
post those scorecards on our website. So if any of the 4-Hers would like to look at the scorecards before the fair to kind of help set them up for success, we do offer that as an opportunity, just so nobody's blindsided. You never want to get to an event and, not know what to expect. So if anybody would like to see those, we do offer that, which it's based off of the guidelines. So nothing is, out of left field. We don't want to throw anybody off. We just want to highlight the projects that they are bringing in and really, bring them full circle.
Now, I'm sure as the overseer of all of this, you probably don't get much opportunity to judge yourself, but have you ever been involved in that process?
I have not been a 4-H judge before.
Hmm.
I think that would be an amazing opportunity, to go back to some of those projects that I took part in. I will say I do work in the state 4-H office and I help oversee the judging at the state fair. So I do not get to take part in that judging because I am overseeing that whole process.
Sure.
But it is a good opportunity. I would say we have kind of a main judging day at the state fair where all of the projects are dropped off. And then the next day we do all of the judging for those projects. So, like I said, I'm not personally judging, but it is such an amazing experience to be able to walk through those buildings and see all of those judges kind of looking through those projects and giving them scores. I would say that's kind of a proud moment because you get to see all of the hard
Sure.
work that these 4-Hers have put into these projects, and, seeing them judged at the state fair is such an honor. And that, I will say, the state fair is kind of like an elevated fair, obviously. So it's a crazy process. We have about 300 judges there, all judging thousands
Wow.
of projects that day. So you definitely get to see it all. So that is definitely one of my favorite days.
And you organized the whole thing?
Yes, it's not as crazy as I make it sound. We obviously have about
Sounds
300
crazy.
judges, but at least these judges, they're prepared for this day. So we help set them up for success beforehand. So the day is pretty smooth. I'm going to jinx myself this year, but the
Yeah, that's right.
judges know what they're doing. So it's kind of a well-oiled machine. But once again, I'm going to jinx myself this year. I don't want to do that.
Now, do you have any memorable moments that you can share with us about past experiences that you've seen happen or that that have happened or have heard?
I don't know about too many specific details. I will say it is always so rewarding to see at the state level, but also at the county level, when judging takes place in the moment, to have some of those, they all walk in so proud. They are proud of their projects. They have put so much time and work into them.
Sure.
So being able to drop those off and, seeing judges communicate with them, you can just see the sense of pride on their faces. And that also carries through during the county fair and the state fair, when those 4-Hers will come back to see their projects, or they might bring family and friends to see those projects. That is such a proud moment to kind of see them kind of show off what they did, and once again, communicate to others, how those projects have gone well. And so I would say that's definitely kind of a general highlight state. I would say other examples, I, everybody is proud of their projects, but sometimes you do run into accidents and mishaps before a county fair, where maybe you were making a pie the day before and, the pie didn't turn out. And so I would say also in that sense of, you have 4-Hers sometimes turn in projects on judging days, and, when they're talking to judges or just communicating to people, talking through some of those, mishaps, but also seeing the positive things, maybe your perfect blueberry pie didn't turn out like you wanted, but you were able to think on your feet, pick yourself up, and make another product that you made you brought to the fair. And so definitely looking at those opportunities. Also, you see that sometimes in communication projects. Like I said, we do offer communication projects. So sometimes you have, members that, I guess this can be in multiple years, but 4-Hers that get out there on the stage and you can tell they are a little nervous, a little bit outside of their comfort zone. And, but when they walk off that stage, they have such a sense of pride sometimes. And so, just getting that first step, of experience in that, and then maybe seeing them come back project next year and they're looking more confident on the stage, maybe they get a champion in the project. So you can really see growth in that way as well. So I would say those are I've seen some of those things, but kind of general examples.
Probably more than others, you've seen those things, and that's got to feel really good to know that you had a hand in all of that.
Mm-hmm. And I would also say that I'm one person within the 4-H system within the state of Indiana, but we have so many amazing volunteers and project superintendents and different people involved that they also get that sense of pride and accomplishment, seeing their 4-H members and, the people they're a part of, representing well at the fair, So it is definitely kind of like takes a whole community, to show up at a 4-H fair. Even parents, I think parents are sometimes overlooked in that sense too, where, they're kind of the backbone of some of those 4-H projects, driving their 4-H members to the store for the supplies for projects, or making sure they attend meetings. So it's really takes a whole community for these 4-H members.
Sounds more like a small army to me. We've got to take a short break, Megan, but when we come back, we're going to talk about what makes a good judge. When we return to 4-H for You, stay tuned.
Farming isn't just a job. It's the foundation of life. Farmers feed us, fuel our future, and pass down traditions built on hope and hard work. At Farm Credit Mid-America, we know farming is more than a profession. It's a legacy. That's why we stand shoulder to shoulder with farmers, offering agricultural loans, insurance, and education. Because we're not just here for farmers, we're owned by them. Farming matters, and we're proud to honor it every day.
We're back with 4-H for You. My guest today, Megan Skiba. Megan, again, thank you so much for joining me today. What an interesting position that you hold, and a rewarding one at the same time. What advice do you think a judge would give a 4-H member, maybe that is coming out of 4-H and preparing themselves to maybe even be a judge for the first time?
Mm-hmm. I would say the advice for trying to think of, I feel like this could go in so many different ways. The advice for 4-H members, I guess just in general. So the 4-H process, definitely a highlight of the judging process is education. We want the judging process to be an educational process for the 4-H member. So, obviously, like I said, they're coming to the fair with their project. And so the judge is going to ask them questions, from the scorecard, start off, general of, how did you make the project? What would you do differently? Getting them to think about different things. What would you do differently in the future? Thinking about next year, what do you think, you could challenge yourself with, or skills could you develop? And so we definitely want some of those questions, to be kind of, I guess, long-term, in the sense of getting them to think. And so I would say when 4-H members are kind of nearing the end of their 4-H career, maybe they're a senior, and looking at the future of judging, I think some of the advice, would be to, Like I said, I think I mentioned it earlier, but, coming back to a program that hopefully, helped round you and, develop you as a person going into the real world, if you want to call it that. And so
Hmm.
I think the advice would be, kind of challenging them. Like I said, going back to the educational sense of, education and learning doesn't just stop when your 4-H career ends. So, continuing in some of those projects, turning them into hobbies in your adult life. And then also, giving back to those projects, coming back to the fair and helping other 4-H members develop in those projects and, helping those 4-H, the future generation of 4-H members. So I guess there's a lot of different parts to that, but I would say I would say the overall advice I would give is to, don't forget about 4-H. You can always come back as a volunteer, a judge. There are so many different ways to be involved. And so definitely don't forget about 4-H when your 4-H member journey ends.
That's good. Let's talk about the non 4-Her, the average county fair goer. What let's say they're listening right now. What can you tell them? What should they look for to better understand and appreciate the 4-H projects?
Yes. So advice for anybody as far as the projects go. Like there are so many different ways to get involved in 4-H, but the projects
Sure.
specifically, I would encourage them to attend a county fair, close to them and really check out the different projects at the 4-H fair because I think that is just it's such an amazing experience to be able to walk around and see all of the different projects and creations that the 4-H members brought to the fair. So I think in looking at those projects, you can kind of identify what might interest you. You might see a really beautiful photograph, framed. And so you could take that back, and say, oh, wow, I would really like to take pictures and maybe be a part of photography in the future or looking at the beautiful different dresses at the fair within the sewing exhibit and thinking wow I would really like to learn how to sew, how to hem a dress or how to make a seam, and so I would say that would be my number one advice is to go out to the county fair, check it out, see those projects, interact with some of the people at the fair to learn more because there are so many different opportunities to get involved in. But I think that is a good first step. And it's also a hands-on step, where you can actually see what is going on. I guess a visual example of what's going on.
Megan, in your opinion, what qualities make a good 4-H judge?
Ooh, that is a good question. I would say good qualities for 4-H judges. I would say the first one would have to be kindness, which I think most judges probably have this quality, but being kind to the 4-H members. Judging is, I've it's a big experience for those 4-H members. Obviously want some judges that will take their time with the 4-H members and be kind to them because if somebody is maybe a little blunt or a little bit dry, that 4-Her might remember that experience in the future and they may not be looking forward to judging or looking forward to doing it again. So I would say kindness is definitely the first step. And I would say beyond that, patience would probably be another one. Some of those 4-H members can be nervous or a little bit shy, especially the young ones. So sticking with them and helping them through the judging process is always good. And I would say overall, some of these qualities are really nice. And I think it can be a little bit daunting for people outside of the 4-H world, looking in, saying, oh, I've never done that. I don't have the experience or, the knowledge. But we accept anybody and everybody, so if you love to sew and you know how to sew, but maybe you were never a part of 4-H, we have a place for you. We can help give you the guidelines of judging and those guidelines of the projects so that they can walk in and help judge. So I would say this is a very open-ended process. We are always looking for new judges. So if anybody is interested in becoming a judge, reaching out to your county extension office and trying to find out ways to get involved.
I'm glad you started going in that direction, because that was my next question for you, was how can people get involved and who can get involved? And you just answered that question. Can you get a little bit more in depth with how they can get involved?
Yes. So I would say in order to get involved, like I said, reach out to your county extension office. If you don't even know the phone number, you can look it up online, or we do have a state 4-H office phone number, so you can give us a call there and we can help identify, what office may be closest to you or which one makes more sense to get involved. And from there, the county educators, I would say they are super helpful. Each county is different, so that educator will know, where help is needed. If they're looking for a superintendent to look over a project, if you have that expertise and knowledge, you could potentially serve in that role. Or if you're looking in more, just getting involved in some different way, they can help plug you in, as a club leader or a superintendent, or, just a volunteer that helps with large events, or, helps at the fair, And so there are definitely a lot of ways to get involved. And so I would say reaching out to your county office would be the first step. I would say also our website is a good point of reference too, just because it kind of sorts through different things. There is a lot of information on the website though, so that is a handy spot. But personally, I feel like websites sometimes are a little overwhelming. So I think calling somebody might be a little bit easier. So definitely, if you want to see more information, you can go there. But there are lots of people ready and willing to help you.
Megan, I tell you, I think that community involvement, whether it be judging or even just attending a fair, I think it's so important to the success of 4-H. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think people can be a little daunted by the opportunity, or, they don't know how exactly to get involved. And so, like you said, I think showing up is a great way to get involved and show support. And, it can evolve into different ways, but there definitely, there are so many different ways to get involved and show support. So it's not a one size fits all, there are so many different ways to give back and help.
Yeah, because I guarantee that even if you're not, or your kids are not involved in 4-H, somebody in your circle of influence that is, and it would mean the world to them if you just showed up and gave them support. I love that idea.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Megan, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been fantastic having you.
Thank you for having me. We're getting ready for the 4-H season in the summer, so this is perfect time to kind of have this conversation and kickstart the season. So county fairs are starting next month, so this is a good time, like we said, to show up and show support.
Well, that's it for today's episode of 4-H for You. We hope you've gained a new appreciation for the role judging plays in shaping confident, capable young leaders, and maybe even feel inspired to get involved yourself. If you're interested in becoming a 4-H judge, there's always a need for dedicated individuals. Reach out to your local county extension office or the Indiana State office to learn how you can make a difference. And don't forget, your local county fair is the perfect place to see 4-H in action and support these hardworking youth. Thanks for joining us. If you liked this podcast, please like and share it out for others to enjoy as well. 4-H for You is a podcast from the Hoosier Ag Today Presents Your Purdue Extension Podcast Network. I'm Greg Allen, and we'll see you all next time on 4-H for You.